Remote script. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full names for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member from the public the meeting who does not use a full name or acts inappropriately. As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present, can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Penny Dye.
Present.
Brooke Moore.
Present.
Rima Sherry.
Present.
Dave Iverson.
Present seems to be the word of the day.
Chantal Murphy.
Oh, present.
Great. Staff, Tucker Holland.
Here.
Ken Bogle.
Oh,
Nice.
Tucker.
Here.
And Ali Mitchell. Ali's on mute.
Here.
Okay, there we go. Great. Anticipated speakers. I think we have an update from Mr. Cassidy. Can we hear? And Ann Kuspa.
Present.
On the agenda, we have Victoria Ewing. Can you hear us, Victoria? Tori?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. And then forgive me, is it Eliza Tripp?
Yes, you got
Okay,
it.
good. Okay, thank you. Phew. I hate to get them wrong. All right, so moving down, I think those are all our anticipated speakers. Good afternoon. This is an open meeting. The Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, ensuring public access does not ensure public participation. Unless such participation is required by law, this meeting will feature public comment. For the meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening via video conference via the Zoom app is posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along and use the posted agenda unless we note otherwise. We'll turn to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover ground rules for effective clear conduct of the business and ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you. State your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after the members have spoken, the chair will afford the public comment to those members of the public who join the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and be acknowledged and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote will be conducted by a roll call. And with that, we'll move to the first item on the agenda, which is an approval of the agenda. Does anybody want to make any changes, talk about it, or just approve it?
Prove it. That's a
Okay,
motion.
I'll
Motion to
second.
approve from Penny and seconded by Rima by roll call. Penny Dye.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan's an aye. Ali, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Can we, was everybody in attendance of all of these? Can we take them all together? Do we need to do them separately?
Not everyone was in attendance at all of them. And actually the 19th, we cannot do today because the video was not posted for me to take minutes until today. So you're really just
Okay.
doing 17, 22, 5, 12. Let me see. Yeah,
Great.
everyone was kind of all over the place. So maybe we should just do them one by
We'll
one.
do them one at a time. So any discussion on the minutes from March 17th? Edits, additions?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Rima. Ali, can everybody vote on this one?
One second. This was, I believe, the meeting of the ladies, as we called it. So Brooke, Penny, Rima, Chantal were there.
We called it the unmanned aircraft is what we call it.
Yeah, nice. So Brooke, I'll have you take this vote.
Oh, okay. By roll call, Penny Dye,
I,
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Chantal Lois Murphy,
Aye.
and Brooke votes aye. So that passes.
Thank you, Brooke.
wait a second, before we leave this, I just Brooke, didn't we get out of there in like 28 minutes or something?
It was
Oh,
a
you
20
mean because
minute.
it was run by women?
I didn't say it, you did.
So with that, we'll move on to March 22nd.
Wow.
Right, Dave? Now we really got to keep this one
I
moving.
mean, not that we would ever argue that they're better, but don't need it in our face, do we?
So I'm
Any-
looking at that one and that's the same attended members.
Great. You want to run with that one?
Sure. So do I have a motion to approve or
Yeah.
comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Rima. Okay, by roll call, Penny,
I,
Don is not here. So Chantal
Aye.
and myself, aye. Is that enough?
And
people?
aye.
Oh, and you're not listed as attending.
What?
You were there?
I think, I don't remember missing a meeting. Oh, I
Okay.
came late. That was the one I came late.
Yes, you
Okay.
did come late.
Okay.
I'll
So-
adjust that.
So I was there, but late.
Okay, so reversing a little bit with that correction that Rima was in attendance. Do we need to do it again? No, we'll just make it with that correction. Approve with that correction.
I believe later in the minutes, there is a spot where Sully notes that Rima attended, but I'll make the note above at the top.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you. Let me scroll down and see. So April 5th, it looks like everybody was there, except Chantal. So comments or motion to approve? Oh, Brian, you could take it back, sorry.
Don't be sorry. Thank you. Any comments with the motion?
I'll move approval.
Second?
I'll second.
Second from Dave by roll call. Penny Dye,
I,
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. April 12th, do we have full attendance?
Looks like it's Penny, Rima, Don, Brian, Dave, and Chantal. That's the one I missed. So I
Okay,
will.
great. Any comments, edits, or changes to April 12th?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second from Dave by roll call. Penny Dye,
I,
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. And we'll carry the 19th over to the next meeting. Item number 4, public comment. So we'll open the floor to any members of the public that have comment that's not on the agenda. Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to mention several items under this section. So as everyone knows, town meeting is coming up on Monday, May 2nd. And there are several key housing articles with regard to funding. The basic budget for the housing office is in Article 8. I wouldn't expect a lot of discussion about that. Article 10 is the capital budget appropriation. And in there, that would include the $10 million that we had requested bonding authority for. I'm going to just share my screen. So Article 10 in this year's warrant, this is how we had reflected to the Finance Committee. We intended to utilize the monies really for construction at 2 locations, Orange Street and Vesper Lane. Then in Article 20 is another $10 million debt exclusion This is primarily intended for home ownership opportunity and construction at Bartlett Road. So I'll circulate or recirculate these graphics so folks have them handy. We went over with the town manager yesterday the plan for speaking on different articles should they be called and there be discussion. I can't, we haven't honestly heard a lot of talk or controversy around the housing funding articles, but that doesn't mean that they won't get called. And I would just say, if members of this board, felt compelled to speak to a particular issue that might get raised, we just wanted to make you aware and encourage you to do so. So that is simply really an update and reminder.
Tucker, can you email that deck?
Yeah, I'm planning to circulate that around again.
Sorry, I was on mute trying to
Yeah.
point out Penny.
Yeah, Brian, I just have a question through you to Tucker, which is, it would be really, to me, helpful to have a list of what we've funded that is either built and occupied or under construction with occupancy expected in this calendar year.
Okay, and so I think you'll see so there are slides for all of the monies that we have been allocated the last few years, like the ones we just looked at. So if there are further questions beyond what I sent, please let me know, and I'm happy to get that information. So the second item, Mr. Chair, I wanted to bring up under this, it was simply to update the board that, there is a lot of work being done on the transfer fee. I'm going to point out that our state senator, Julian Sear, has been extremely active. And we had several recent meetings, including a meeting with the Speaker of the House office, the Senate President's office, and also the Cape and Islands delegation. And if I can quote, Sarah Peak, Representative Peak from Provincetown, who is in leadership, she says, this is poised to move. I think this is going to happen. And it's really the first meeting that I've been in where I really felt like, this may actually get there. I think there's still a lot of ups and downs and kind of twisting around these next few weeks. May 9th is a key date for the Housing Committee to report out on the statewide version of the transfer fee. But I can also report that Martha's Vineyard, 5 of the 6 towns have had their town meetings now and strongly endorsed a transfer fee. So it really is gaining traction. I think there is some concern that the governor might veto something that is passed, but I think many of us feel like let's cross that bridge when we need to cross it. So anyway, an update on the transfer fee. And finally, the third item, which is really going to take the air out of this meeting, but some very sad news that Allie will be leaving us at the end of next week.
So while it does take the air out of the future, I want to thank Allie for the past and the present. So I do appreciate where you got us to. And thank you for being here in the time that you've been here and creating some shoes for the next opportunity and somebody to step into. So anybody out there knows of somebody who has big feet that can step into these shoes, I believe the town is posting the position.
It's already posted.
It's already posted,
There we go.
what I understand. I think you'll have an incoming one from what I understand. I mean,
And
it's
Ally,
no
we wish
alley.
you the best of luck in your next endeavor.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ally.
Thank you, Ally.
So that is it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Tucker. Are there any other members of the public with items for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move to item 5 on the agenda. So this is an opportunity to discuss a memorial or tribute opportunity for Mr. Dickler, who put a lot of time and energy towards housing on Nantucket, and a lot of well thought through efforts and endeavors on our behalf and the community's behalf. So I think there's been some ideas kicking around. Tucker, can I open to you to lead this a little bit? I think we were talking about a citizenship award or.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think everyone, greatly appreciates Mr. Dickler's strong support of the housing effort, his work as the co-chair of the, his work on the Neighborhood First Advisory Committee, and just someone who was a fixture at our meetings. And so, we'd begun to think about, might it be appropriate to give out an annual award that would go to the citizen community member who best exhibits the spirit of Howard Dickler on housing advocacy for our year-round community. And, perhaps traits like dedication, drive, creativity, inclusiveness, and fearlessly willing to share ideas, might be some of the things that we would consider in who we might make an award to. So we don't need to think about an individual today, but just to start the process of perhaps creating an annual recognition name for Mr. Dickler.
Thank you, Tucker. Brooke?
I was going to try not to cry. Fearless is the word that you said that jumps out at me the most. Howard was unafraid to take a radical stance or propose a radical idea to push a topic forward. And for me personally, he taught me that. And that is the thing that I think would be great to honor him, is someone who is willing to energize the community and to move forward on important issues. And I think it would be a great honor to give an award with, a housing focus maybe, but not necessarily. I think that his housing advocacy was just representative of his general commitment to advocacy, and, as he would say, being an unabashed communist and not afraid to talk about it. And I loved him for that.
Thank you, Brooke. So can I propose an idea? Rima and Brooke, as Rima, I see you shaking your head feverishly agreeing with Brooke. I'm wondering if the two of you would consider wordsmithing kind of the ideals of this award, and we look to an effort to make recognition by the end of 2022 to the person, and then we make it an annual award. So that there is an award that goes out this 2022 to a member of the community.
I'd be honored.
Yeah, I would love to do that. And with Tucker as well, because he's got it. He understands.
I'll forward you my one sentence.
It was a good sentence.
I'll mention that somewhat took the liberty of, because she had written to me, but Howard's wife, Anna, had sent me a note. And I mentioned to her that we may be thinking about something like this. And I think she thinks it's a wonderful idea. So I think we would have the family's blessing.
Great. Great
Awesome.
idea.
Well, thank you to Mr. Dickler for
Yeah.
what he has done, and thank you to those of you who helped memorialize him with this.
And I'm sorry.
1 second,
just-
Penny. Go ahead, Tucker.
I just was going to say, I realized I kicked it off perhaps incorrectly. Perhaps we should be saying Dr. Dickler,
Doctor, yes.
but Howard, really, to all of us.
Yes, Penny?
I was just gonna make a motion. I think we should vote on it, probably, just for posterity.
Great.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve this annual award, develop criteria. Rima and Brooke will work on that with Tucker. And the details of which we'll refine. I guess that's my motion.
Great. In the second?
Second.
Second from Rima by roll call. Penny,
I,
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
and Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
Lastly, Brian Sullivan's an aye. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll move to a couple of applications. We have a CCAP application from Miss Ewing for 33 South Shore Road. Are there any members of the trust with questions related to the application? Miss Ewing is here. If anybody has any questions they want to direct towards her. Okay, seeing no trust member questions. Miss Ewing, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
No, I just wanted to make sure that you guys were satisfied with everything submitted, and again, answer any questions if needed.
Great,
Appreciate the opportunity.
great. I have a member of the public with a question or a hand up. Mr. Cassidy?
I just wanted to say to the board that the house in question is Wickles's old house.
Oh, cool. That's kind of fun, full circle. So
So-
looking for a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
I apologize, can you do the full part? The up to 15,000, but
Oh, sorry, yeah. Now I can't find my agenda. I will make a motion for approval of the closing cost assistance program up to $15,000. The property located at, help me, somebody, 33 South Shore Road. Thank you.
And I think I heard Rima second it. Was that right, Rima?
Yes.
Yes. By roll call, Penny Dye,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Thank you, Tori. You're welcome to stick around, or you're welcome to take off and do what you need to.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Congratulations.
We have.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have the next application. I'm moving quickly because the lady set a precedent. I'm trying to catch up to the 28 minutes. Next application from Eliza Tripp for 9A Benjamin Drive, Unit 2. Are there any questions on the application? Seeing none from any members. Eliza, do you have any comments or anything you'd like to offer to the board?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I will offer a motion to approve closing cost assistance for Eliza Tripp at 9A Benjamin Drive, Unit 2, which is a Habitat house. Up to $15,000 pending final closing costs. That's my motion.
Great. And a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Penny by roll call. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Thank you for joining us, Eliza. You're welcome to drop off or stick around, whatever works for you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The Clark application at 4 Hull Lane. I don't believe we have this applicant on today, but is there any questions on this application, comments from staff or the board? Seeing none, look for a motion on this application.
Well, I'm unmuted. I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
And I'll second it.
Okay, so by roll call, Penny Dye,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
Brooke Moore. You're on mute, Brooke.
Aye.
Thank you. Brian Sullivan's an aye. With that, we'll move to item number 7, 31 Fairgrounds update. I will turn the floor over to Ann Kuspa. Ann, do you have an update for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to pass it off to Billy, please.
Great. Mr. Cassidy, floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I'll be very brief, but the floodgates opened yesterday. I'm going to be brief because I all of a sudden have a lot to do. A week from tomorrow, we pick up the first of 10 boxes, which will comprise buildings 1 and 8 at 31 Fairgrounds Road. It's going to probably take a little bit more than a week to restage them all down to New Bedford. The Steamship Authority and the Barge Company are talking. I expect resolution tomorrow on timing of when they come across. And we have the HDC tonight for the first part for the, I believe that we will be up at HDC tonight for the solar installation, which I believe that you have seen. That's a question.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think that is going to be pretty exciting. Beyond that, that's what I've got. Oh, pardon me. There was a discussion in the last meeting about a sign out by the road, adjacent to the road, where people could inform themselves of what was going on. And I decided to wait until the delivery of the beginning boxes. We've got enough people stopping by on a regular basis right now, and there's really nothing to talk about other than a couple of holes. I think it'll be more meaningful in a couple of weeks when there is real activity beginning. So.
Thank you, Billy. Rima has a question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Billy, that solar array is still over the parking area. Is that what you're doing again?
Entirely behind the parking area. And, you know, Ann may want to speak to this a little bit. She's been talking to Tim and Toby. I have really just been focused on the structures themselves, which are behind almost. The reality is I think it'd be very difficult to see any of this, you know, if we can move forward.
Okay.
But it is really, this is really, really neat because it truly does set this up as a net zero project with the installation of that. And it's pretty cool stuff.
Great.
Thank you, Rima. Brooke?
I may have missed something along the way. I know we had included in the financing the infrastructure to be solar ready. And have you found funding for the actual solar array?
Not yet.
Okay.
We are waiting for a couple things, irons in the fire, but not yet.
Okay. I'd like to pick up on that a little bit, Brooke. To that point, I think that Ann really needs to wait on this component of things, the design, before she is able to really, you know, take it over the finish line here. And you know, while this is in flux, I think that she's, you know, poised, but really the hands are tied right at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, I would say through you, Mr. Chair, that absolutely. I mean, I think people, the commitment to fund something always comes when there's something to look at and approval and like being really ready to go and then seeking. So I'm excited. I was just hoping I had missed an announcement that the funding had come through for the array, but I'm happy that we're doing this important first step.
Thank you, Brooke. Dave?
How much funding are we looking for the solar array? I've forgotten. Does anyone know what that number was?
Ann, I'll come to you.
There was I had put forth the original number of $600,000, which was for the structures themselves and the panels. I think that we've gone a little bit back and forth about the actual requirement necessary. And so after we have approval, I think that Ann will really be able to nail that down. I would suggest approaching that cautiously right at the moment, particularly given what we've all heard about this supply chain stuff.
Thank you.
Ali, will you just note the record that Don will join the meeting at this juncture? Thank you. Any more questions for Ann or Billy on the Fairgrounds update? Seeing none, I will say thank you to them and move us to the next item, the Richmond Wildflower Acceleration. So Mr. Arminetti, can I pass to you?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Mr. Chairman, board members, staff. Dave Arminetti, Director of Real Estate Development for Richmond Great Point Development. Good afternoon. Our update, before I give an update, I want to echo some of the board's thoughts. We got to know Mr. Dr. Dickler a little bit during the Neighborhood First process, and a little bit after that, I had a few conversations with him, and I think as a couple of the board members correctly characterized, he was definitely a man of ideas, and forceful was a pretty good word to describe him. And obviously any community, especially a community like Nantucket, the heart and soul of the place is its people, especially people who are working on behalf of the community or putting a lot of energy into the community efforts in addition to their private lives, and certainly fit that mold. And we're both, I personally and everybody at Richmond, is sorry to hear of his passing. And also, I don't think we got a chance back in December or January to acknowledge the same for Mrs. Wegner. Obviously, that was a big loss for the community and for planning and housing and real estate activities on the island. So unfortunately, a couple of big pieces are now missing, but plenty of people to carry on and a lot of energy expended in the things that they started and carried forward. So sorry to hear about that. Our efforts are continuing apace, much like Billy and Ann. I want to congratulate them for getting their first buildings off the assembly line, the fabrication line. That's a big step. And you guys are certainly in good hands with Jonah and his crew with the barge. He's gotten a lot of practice over the last couple of years, bringing things over the sound in the bay. So you're in good hands. We are continuing primarily with construction in addition to our outreach. On the outreach side, we're continuing through our fair marketing period. We're getting towards the end of that. I believe our applications are due for our AMI units May 10th. We had our community informational session about 2.5 weeks ago. Was primarily on Zoom. We had, I think, about 20 people at different times on Zoom, and only a couple came to the actual live session at the community room. But we had good attendance and some good questions. People are definitely paying attention. And to that end, as of about 4 or 5 days ago, when I last checked in on this number with SEB, our consultants, got about 110 applications pending for all of our combination of AMI units, both in this portion of our project, which is 12 AMI units, 650s and 600s, and then for the 4 80% AMI units that are in the next 2 buildings we're building as part of our base Meadows 2 Phase 3. Historical averages tell us that somewhere between a third or a half of those applicants will ultimately not be qualified for one reason or another, or will drop out. So, as of about a week ago, we had a little over 100 applicants. The majority were for the 80% and the 100% units. The 100% units in particular, I think, had almost 40 applications. The 80% had about 30, and the 50% I think had in the high 20s. So we were even pleased by that. We were a little concerned that we weren't going to get as much demand as we were hoping for the 50%, but we seem to be getting good demand there as well. So good news. Nothing that the board and people involved in this sector don't understand. There's tons of demand. The only problem is, great, we have 110 some odd applicants, probably 50 or 60 of them will qualify for the lottery. And unfortunately, we're only going to have, 16 winners. The rest have to go on a waiting list until we and others can keep producing housing. But, every unit is a unit, and we're certainly enthused to move forward with this process through the month of May, get people qualified, and keep going. So we'll keep the board apprised of that portion of our project. Construction is going well. We're over the kind of period where anything but an earthquake really can't slow us down now. All the buildings are up. Third building was set about 2 weeks ago. Our subcontractors are working hard. We have a really good team in place for this phase that we're really very, very happy with. And our first building, the 8-unit building, actually got a temporary CO about 10 days ago. We have 2 market rate units there already occupied. And our second building, the 10-unit building that's closest to Old South Road, that should have a CO in about 3 weeks. And the last building, which is the 8-unit building closest to Ironwood Road or Lover's Lane, should have a CO by the middle or third week of June. So full speed ahead. Everything's going well. The weather can't hold us up now, so it's just construction detail and finishing out our inspections with the town. And as always, the Plus Department and Building Department and Paul and his team and the inspectors are always responsive and available. So everybody's rowing in the same direction. We're very pleased. And as always, we very much value the support of the board and the staff, and we'll keep going and keep you posted. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Seeing none, Dave, we'll let you go. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good day. Good luck at town meeting.
Thank you.
For once, we don't have an item on, so I'm not a target this town meeting. I'm just a spectator.
Well, enjoy the show.
Thanks.
I'm sure there'll be fireworks on some topic, so enjoy the show.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
You too. Moving to item 9, housing demand and supply RFP. I think Dave segued this really well, right? And how he's got some real data and real numbers on needs and percentages and the amount of availability and supply. I found that interesting. So with that, Tucker, I'll pass to you for the moment, and then we'll share it around the board.
Yeah, so I think the main thing that we'd like to accomplish today is I'm going to throw up the refined scope that we had talked about at a prior meeting to get the board's further feedback on where this is at. From here, then we will be circulating amongst several different groups and boards, as we had discussed. There've been a few different pressing matters, so we've not had an opportunity to do that before now. But following today, we will be sending it along. I think there's a lot of focus, obviously, on town meeting next week. So I'll let people kind of digest what we've got up there. Can everyone see that? I can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, there we go. My glasses don't seem to be working that well.
Okay.
Brian?
Yes.
I think that this really captures the question that I want to answer and that I've been thinking a lot about, which is we have an economy that functions because people are able to work in jobs and make that economy function. And if those people don't have a place to live, we have issue, and I think that's what we're trying to get at here is what is a housing market look like that allows our community to be functioning, our economy to be functioning, and then the question is, how do we get there? Right? We have lots of strategies and tools that we can use. The bigger question is, how much do we need? And that's, I'd love to have a better handle on that.
I would agree with that. And one thing that I'm thinking about as I read these into your point, Brooke, is the number of jobs that people work to be able to maintain housing and what that looks like as well. And I don't know how you layer that into this economic question, but are we underemployed based on housing, based on the number of jobs people need to have? So does that become a subset of one of these questions?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, this is a complicated economic analysis because it's not just counting houses or people, it's counting multiple different variables and how they play into the need for housing. And I think your point is really well taken. I think we saw a lot last summer, people doing double shifts and triple shifts in jobs that they would probably prefer not to, but in order for businesses to be open and serve the patrons, they had no choice. And I was actually having a conversation with someone today about an employer that has housing and is struggling to find employees. And, have we created an environment even for that summer kid to come and work? It's not fun anymore because they're living in less than ideal conditions and being expected to work all the time. And so, what are we doing to erode the experience of being on Nantucket, either as a resident, full-time resident, a business owner, seasonal employee, or a seasonal visitor, and how the housing market plays into that? Right. Is my greatest concern.
Are we working to live or living to work? Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say that I think it sort of is implicit in the formulation of the scope and the questions, but maybe we want to make explicit that it is, we're looking for by sector or by profession in addition to the total number.
Go ahead, Brooke.
And maybe another way to quantify that is by pay scale, right? So there are restaurant workers who work in the kitchen washing dishes, and there are restaurant workers who are servers who earn tips, and their income potential is vastly different in those two jobs. And so, how many jobs do we have that sort of fall into different AMI levels, as well as different sectors of the economy? It's a multidimensional analysis that would be the most helpful.
So I think that bullet 2 somewhat is meant to address that by income strata. Like my comment was relative to the first bullet point really, where we're talking about what does the community need to properly function, I think we need to be looking at, by sector, by profession, what have you.
So Tucker, this is a really high level document, and we are a specific group within this document. Who else, as we take this out, have you discussed this with loosely or in greater detail, and about as far as boards and bringing this to the light? Is this a finance committee conversation, board of selectmen? Is it planning board? Is it NEPDEC? Is it, did I get that right? First time ever.
Close.
Okay.
I think it's all of the above, and add in the finance director, the town manager. I think that we would widely circulate the scope to ensure that we can't ask one study to do everything. It will become sort of like, you emphasize everything, you emphasize nothing. But to the extent that it directly relates to the core of what we're trying to get out of this, we want to make sure that we're not missing anything, that we're stating the scope in a manner that truly will get us what we want.
Dave?
Where are we going to find this data? Are we going to work with the chamber through surveys? It seems to be a lot of data. I'm not clear on where we're going to, don't get me wrong. We need it, but I'm just not clear on how we get it.
So I think that becomes when we put out an RFP to the firm or firms that exist in the world, what are they going to come back with, right? Like, is this data coming from social service groups? Is it coming from polling, them cold calling, various businesses, top business leaders in the community participating, the town employees? I don't know the answer, but I think it has to come from a lot of places, and it's not a simple survey.
Yeah, no, I agree. It seems overwhelming, but important.
I think to that point, we're probably talking about a very expensive project here. Rima?
Yeah, I think that's why we included the question in there, what techniques would be used. So the applicant, the responder can explain their methods and how they expect to get something like this done.
Thank you, Rima.
They have their ways, they really do.
Penny?
Sorry, yes. I think it's always an interesting discussion when we start to talk about how to quantify, because the other end of that is limiting, right? Capacity. And that's just a comment. I'm not expecting an answer to my comment. But secondarily, how long, to actually do this kind of a study and do it correctly, it's not going to happen in months. This is going to take a long time, I would think, looking at the different factors of seasonality, the economy, all of it. So how long, like Tucker, what are you thinking? Like 4 months, 6, 8, a year?
This is my guess would be, something in the 6 to 9 month kind of time frame.
And then Sully, it's NP, like no problem, and EDC, NP and EDC.
No problem. DEC, no problem, DEC.
And EDC.
And that's the part that's
the problem.
I keep wanting to make it a letter. It's an and.
Or you could just say NP EDC. We'd know what you're talking about. At any rate, it seems to me a lot of this should really fall under their purview. Again, just a comment.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we got agreement from Dave with that comment, and yeah, I think this is it's a huge scope. It's a lot of the, when you hear people clamoring in the public, what's the carrying capacity at the island? What's, it has a lot of segment of that. To the point that I heard in Dave's Richmond Wildflower update, right? Are we ever going to meet whatever the need of this report says? And we can keep plugging along, doing what we're doing, creating units. But I think that there are broader questions that this will answer that are important to our community in general. So to Penny's point, does it become a broader study with these fine points on it? Brooke?
I think there's two components to this. I mean, to Dave Armanetti's point, there's a shortfall. If we stopped immigration to Nantucket, and I mean like anything, the influx of anybody to Nantucket today, what is the shortage of housing?
Ferry, not immigration, the ferry.
Yeah, I mean, if we stopped new people coming to Nantucket in any category today, like if we could, and I'm not proposing this, I'm just saying, what's the snapshot shortage today of housing seasonally and year round? And what is the yet to be developed part of Nantucket, and what additional, even if we could wave a magic wand and create the units to meet the need today, what is the forecast for the future as well? I mean, in some way, and I'm more interested in that snapshot because my gut tells me we have a huge backlog to make up, but also have an understanding of sort of what ratio, is there an appropriate ratio of housing for people who work here relative to housing for people who visit here that we should maintain over time to maintain the health of the community. That's how I'm sort of framing this conversation in my head.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Brooke's right in a lot of senses. I mean, so the build out analysis should be done soon, I think, and maybe that'll be helpful. I think a carrying capacity study is a dangerous road to go down. I think we should stay away from that. But I mean, it's so complex. It really depends on the economy, really, right? And how that affects us. And when I say economy, not necessarily just ours, but the whole U.S. economy. And then there's so many other complex things, right? I mean, like, it'll be interesting to see what happens this summer when we're down at least probably 600 seats in restaurants, and how that affects other businesses and their ability to staff. So I think that, I mean, it is complex, and it would be nice to get a baseline and try to make sense of it from there.
Penny?
Yeah, I just want to say there's always been a shortfall. I could tell you the story about when I rented a room at Flossie's and there were 5 of us living in it, right? There's always been a shortfall. As an 18-year-old youngster, I was grateful for that. We need to be careful when we start talking about appropriate housing for what group or appropriate levels of service. That's subjective, right? I might have a different idea about a standard of service now than somebody else would. I mean, how do you define that stuff? It's a lot of big questions. And what are we supposed to be doing about this today specifically, Tucker?
Really doing what you're doing.
Oh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody who hasn't commented have a comment? Brooke? You don't fit that category, but you're the first to raise your hand. So
We have a lot of subcode housing. And I would say an increasing either over-occupied or unpermitted housing. We don't talk about that It's illegal to house people that way, yet we do it at a large scale. And to me, I feel very strongly it's time we open the hood on that question, because that's not a subjective thing. That is illegal.
Penny?
Yeah, Sally, through you, back to Brooke, which is exactly the reason that people need to support Articles 39 and 42 at town meeting to get some structure in place to monitor this stuff. Thank you.
Dave?
And Brooke, you are 100% right on this. 100%. So I don't want you to take anything I say wrong. 100% wrong. This isn't a new problem. I mean, a lot of us remember the Ponderosa, right? Like, I think that it's not right, but at a certain level, we need to live with it until we can provide proper housing. Because if we shut down all the illegal housing on this island, you think we're in trouble now with employees and housing. And again, I'm not saying it's right, and I don't condone it, but I think we need to be careful here, is all I'm saying.
Brooke?
We can't turn this upside down today, but we need to know how people are living in illegal and inappropriate conditions in order to know how much housing is actually needed, because those people are all working in jobs in our economy on Nantucket, and we are living with a false understanding of how deep the shortage of housing is in our community, because we turn a blind eye to those conditions and those circumstances. And I'm not saying we flip it on its head now, but we need to know so we can plan a supply of housing that gives us a snowball's chance, and you know where, of actually getting people out of those conditions, people who are our neighbors, who are our community members, who deserve to live in legal housing. Whether people choose to live in a dormitory with 50 other people, if it's a permitted dormitory, they can make that choice. We need to create supply of housing that meets the needs for the people who work here, and they're already here working. And Dave, I hear you, but that is a story that's been told a long time. The fear of upsetting the economy has allowed us to grow an enormous supply of terrible housing conditions for adults and for children. And we will leave a lasting legacy in our community if we don't do something significant to know about this, to shine a light on it, and to do something about it. And the fear of upsetting an economy at the expense of children's lives, I have a problem with that. I don't think that's who we are as a community. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying we should do, but that's what we've been doing in a sense for a very long time, since I came here in 1985. It's been it's okay. Some people are okay living like that. They'll be able to work their way out of it eventually. Well, they can't anymore. They can't.
Thank you, Brooke. Shanta, I'm going to come to you. You had a comment before.
I'm 100% in agreement with Brooke. I think desperation has driven people to live in some just impossible living situations. And I keep wondering what it will take for us to really start to take action. Does it take a real tragedy for us to recognize that there are some unsafe living conditions that people are living in? You know, how many kids have to sleep next to boilers before we really start taking care of this? You know, and as much as it will upset the economy for us to really take some action, I think we have to be drastic with this. So I agree with you, Brooke.
Tucker, I'll come to you. Thank you, Shanta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was going to point out that nowhere in our wording do we, I think, does the term appropriate appear. So I think if we're wanting to understand the type of number that Brooke and Chantal were just talking about, I think we need to refine this further.
I'm seeing a thumbs up and a head shake from Rima. I think you have general agreement on that. And Brooke and Chantal. Penny, did you have a
Yeah,
comment?
there was a phrase in the second paragraph that says properly function. And all I'm saying, I don't disagree with anything that has been said here, but it is not a zero-sum game. There are lots of intricacies and different gray areas here, and it's not an either-or situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Dave, I did want to come back to you. I saw you had your hand up a minute ago.
Yeah, no, and listen, I wasn't saying the economy that it's going to hurt the economy, but we clamp down on this. Those people are going to be homeless, is what's going to happen. So I just think that I am 100% in agreement with you, bro. 100%. I just think that we need to be careful how we approach it, is all I'm saying, because not that it's a perfect world, but substandard housing is still better than homelessness. Okay. And I fear that if we open this door quickly and aggressively, that there will be homeless people on this island, more homeless people than there already are. So I am 100% with you, Brooke. I'm just counseling moving slow and being careful. That's all I'm saying. I think you're right 100%.
Ken, I'll come to you just 1 second. One thing that I heard that from my perspective is I think the steps in the process are important, right? Whether that we need to work our way through. It's establishment of rule and codification, it's enforcement, it's identification, and it's follow through. And so what are those 4 steps? And while we're talking about a study and all of this, the results of a study, which are great, there's probably enough anecdotal information that exists at the moment where people that Chantal and Brooke are referencing that are in situations that if there were codification, enforcement, regulation, and follow-up, that process would begin to self-regulate prior to a study, and the system and the process would begin in its own. And whether it wasn't a sweeping policy change, the process could begin. So with that, I'll go to Rima, then to Brooke, and then to Ken. I'm sorry, Ken, Rima, Brooke. Ken, go ahead.
Just a point, I've been listening to all of this, and all we're saying is very true. Dave's point's very true. Brooks's point is very true. We've in fact been throwing it under the rug. But I think, I lived here for 30 some odd years now and been involved in real estate the entire time. What I'm seeing for the first time is that this group and the town is in fact finally doing something about it. The biggest difference is that by the end of this summer, we will have 64 families into new accommodations that in fact weren't there before, that are new, and they're going to be able to address it. And the fact is that we are making strides. What I think there needs to be a understanding is that you can't quicken the pace any faster than we're doing it, simply because of the exigencies of how it is to work for government, how much it costs to do stuff, and how difficult it is to get something done. And also, in fact, how to be able to get everything agreed to be able to move forward. So I think before we, in fact, throw up our hands and say, this is never going to get solved, I think that we have started the process to be able to get it solved. And I think we should be looking at this process in terms of getting a handle on, in fact, the scope of the problem, but at the same time, putting out hope, the fact that says we are starting to address it. There may be other things in addition to what we're doing. We can do it and look for advice with respect to that, and then show that there is a plan to be doing this so you can create hope within the community. That's, to my mind, the most important thing that we need to do if in fact we're going to be able to continue to have a community, because that will then allow Finance Committee and the voters to be able to continue to provide funding for us to be able to have the money to be able to buy and build and deliver.
Thank you, Ken. That may have been a mic drop from the Grand Poobah, but Rima, go ahead.
Yeah, I think getting the two numbers, getting the number of personnel to start, and then looking at the current supply, maybe we should say supply of appropriate and safe housing, possibly, or not. But those two numbers are going to tell the story. And so if anyone, comes and says, well, no, if you build more, it'll just make more people come, hearing that a lot. These two numbers just codify the issue. Here's all the workers that are needed. Here's the housing available. Chances are those numbers aren't going to match up real well. And yes, Ken is absolutely right. We have to just keep doing what we're doing. We are doing what we can. There may be other methods down the road, but if we understand how much space we need for our year-round and seasonal workers, then, we can justify going about creating it, without all the yammering. And so, yeah, the problem, yes, has the squishing, and it is getting worse. And that anecdotal stuff is going to come up, and I'm sure, hopefully, that will be part of the study. But I don't know, maybe that's something else to add is to try to delve into the dangerous overcrowding and inappropriate spaces, and try to get an idea of what that is. I don't know, but I think it's important that just getting those first two numbers, it justifies to the naysayers what we're doing.
Thank you, Rima. Brooke, I'll come to you and then Dave.
So thanks, Rima. I agree completely. And I think what needs to be highlighted is the pace at which we are creating housing units is we're never going to get close to solving the problem at this pace. And I think once people understand what that shortfall is, they're going to see that while we're doing an enormous amount relative to what was done in the years before I've been part of this board, it is not even close to enough. And I think at some point in this, there should be a quantification of legally permitted and appropriately occupied housing versus unpermitted and over occupied housing units in terms of what exists. Because a house might be a 4-bedroom house, but if it has 20 people living in it, it's not solving housing for 20 people on a legal basis, a legally permitted basis.
Thank you, Brooke. Dave?
Just, I wanted to go back to the RFP. I think that I think we should all really pay attention when we start to get proposals is what the strategy is going to be to get in touch with the marginalized, not necessarily documented workers that are really hard to get a finger on out here, and are a moving target, because those are the ones that are really suffering the most under the conditions that Brooke talks about. So I think we really need to maybe pay special attention to whomever we decide to go to get this information, is how they plan on what their strategy is to reach the unreachable. I'll call them the unreachable, because they are difficult to get a hold of. I know that Sully, we had a interesting discussion at the lacrosse field the other day, which might, someplace we can go with that to get a hold of these people. But I think that is something really important in this process to figure out. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Any more from any of the members of the board? Seeing none, Anne, I'll open for you.
Thank you. I just was wondering what the board's thoughts were about focusing and looking at it from an inventory perspective. I hear everybody with the economy, totally agree with all of that, and people, counting people, how many do people need? But a concern that I see is also just the year-round housing is losing what we do already have, and looking ahead to that. And I know we've talked about this before as far as the SHI list requirements for the below 80% AMI. I wanted to hear what you all thought about another tier and perhaps tiering up the year-round inventory that's there now, and looking at it from that perspective, and just getting those into something that's deed restricted, at least with a year-round restriction on it, or if there was another type of restriction for seasonal workers, somehow being able to just retain that housing rather than see it turn over and get lost.
So, Anne, I think that's an excellent question. Thank you. I want to bring it sort of to Dave and ask Dave. He mentioned that planning was working through a build-out study, and I don't know how much that is covering that kind of information. And if there's an opportunity.
My understanding of the build out study is it's basically just looking at zoning and the ability to subdivide and where we're at with the build out on the island.
Right. Where's the 4% that's always referred to?
Exactly.
Could be
That's
covered.
my understanding. It's supposed to be done soon, so hopefully we will all see.
And that's not necessarily, that's a total, in theory, unit number, but your question is, how do we capture the existing year-round units, or what percentage of that 4% are year-round, or how do we hold them in that inventory? Got it. Penny, I don't have an answer. That's one of the reasons I'm moving on.
Just as a quick follow-up, my understanding from planning staff is they're also analyzing by all the different zoning districts attrition, houses that were previously occupied year-round that are no longer, since 1998, I believe they're tracking this, and they're cross-referencing with the voter rolls. So we should have, they were starting by just looking at R10, and there was an efficiency in the process, and they decided to do, I believe, the whole island.
So that's incredible. That will be incredibly interesting data, right? To see. But I wonder what homes have gone in, out, and back in over a period of time, from year-round out to in.
I was told in the R1 district, which is the first one they did, they started this some months back, there was a net loss of only 5 year-round homes since during that time period.
Interesting. Tucker? You're on mute.
Yep, sorry. Just Mr. Chair, this is a fantastic discussion. But I'm watching the clock. We do have one thing that we need to do in executive session that might take 10 or 15 minutes. So I just wanted to mention that.
So I think to that point, this is not a solution question that we have in front of us, or the notes on the proposal, but I think nobody had any fundamental changes. There were a couple of wordsmithing edits that you captured, and now to move that document along. Do you need a vote, or are you comfortable with moving it where you are?
This is great. I will synthesize what I heard today, circulate to this board, and then also to other boards, and we'll, at our May meeting, we will presumably finalize what we would like to send out.
Great, thank you. So with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, other business. Upcoming meetings presently all plan to be conducted via Zoom. We have Tuesday, May 17th at 12:30. Is that objectionable? Any members? Seeing no objection, we'll have that move forward. Item 11, board comments. Seeing no comments. Item 12 is executive session. Is there someone willing to make the motion? I'm just going to pick on Brooke because Penny didn't have the agenda in front of her before.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Move to close the open session to reconvene an executive session, not to return to open session for the purpose of considering the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property where an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Second.
And a second from Penny, and by roll call, Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye, and we'll leave and rejoin on the other link.